Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Midnight Chill. Last week's episode, the Halloween episode. Guys, what do you think? Do not be afraid to leave a comment and let me know what you thought. I would love to hear from every one of my listeners, especially on what you thought of my stories. If you liked it, you didn't like it, if you thought something worked, you thought something didn't work, anything at all, just let me know. Give me feedback. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you like, tell me what you love, or even what you'd like to hear in the future. And don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, as well as your comment. Guys, let's make this happen. Let's get out there and fucking rule the world. And speaking of ruling the world, this week's episode, I have a special little gem for you. It is a story out of my book Strings. Strings was published a few years ago and has loads of short stories. This one is one of my favourites out of it. It's also my brother's favourite out of it. So once again, have a listen, tell me what you think, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the Midnight Chill. Autumn Blues and Opportunities. Sandra leaned against the post on the dock watching the brown leaves gliding softly toward the ground. She always loved sitting by the lake in autumn. Somehow, it felt magical. When she was 6, her father had brought her here. Every day they would sit for hours as the wonders of autumn overwhelmed summer's last hole. When the fish jumped in the lake, she would get excited even though she never saw them. Knowing that they were there was enough to amuse her. Her father pointed out squirrels collecting nuts, little rabbits that sometimes took a drink from the lake. Once or twice, as dusk fell, he had pointed out a fox or an owl. It was the best time of her life. Sitting here now, she remembered all those things. She remembered her dad. That single autumn was enough to implant an everlasting memory in her mind. It was one that she was grateful for with every fibre of her being. For the following summer, her father had died in a car accident. That didn't stop Sandra from reliving those moments. Every autumn, whenever she could, she would come down and sit on the dock by the lake. She watched the leaves fall from the trees. She watched as the green carpeted forest floor turned into a flaky wooden brown. She listened as the fish jumped, and when they did, she smiled, always. That was her fondest memory, the way she and her father always laughed at that. She watched squirrels gather their nuts and ducks out on the lake, and she knew her father was with her, all the time. Although she could not see or hear him, she could feel his presence all around her. Now, after 10 wonderful autumns and memories, her mother was selling the house. Someone was looking at it right this moment as she sat watching a lonely leaf swaying back and forth as it fell to the ground. She did not want to leave this place. She never wanted to leave. This was the only place she could still be with her father, and now her mother was going to take that away from her. Hi there, someone spoke from behind her. Sandra spun around and looked up into the eyes of a boy around her age. Who are you? She asked quickly, defensively. My name's Joe. I'm here with my parents looking at the house. Sandra stared up at him. The enemy. He was going to take her home away, her father away. Go away, she said, turning her back on him. That's not a very nice thing to say. Joe walked toward her. Well, I don't want to talk to you, especially since you plan on taking away my home. Fire burned in Sandra's eyes as they connected with his. Joe sat down on the edge of the dock and dangled his feet a few inches above the water. I'm not planning on doing anything. Then why are you here? My parents want to buy this place, not me. I'd rather stay where we are. Sandra could tell there was sincerity in his voice. Here was someone who understood what it was like to be attached to a place. Then why are you moving? My dad got this big promotion at work, and now he's showing off. He thinks he gets more respect from his co-workers, when actually they don't even care about him. He has small man syndrome. What's that? It's where a small man acts big so that people will be intimidated and envious of what he's achieved. That's kind of pointless, isn't it? Yeah, bullshit if you ask me. Sandra started to laugh. Ah, she smiles! Joe threw his arms wide in a victorious gesture. Sandra's smile grew wider as the fish jumped out in the lake. Whoa, did you see the size of that? Joe said. Every day, she replied, still smiling, until the thought of her father sneaked back in. How did it get that big? No one's allowed to fish in the lake. Really? That's kind of shit, isn't it? Well, you can fish with a rod, but no extreme fishing with nets. That way, when you catch one, it'll be worth it. I'll definitely be buying a rod when we move here, Joe said, excited. Sandra's smile dropped and she looked down to her hands. When Joe looked around, he realized what he said. He was going to apologize, but decided against it. Why are you selling the house if you don't want to leave? I'm not. My mother is. Did you tell her you don't want to go? She doesn't care. How come you want to stay so badly anyway? My father died when I was 7. I know this is going to sound strange, but when I'm here, I can feel him here with me. What do you mean, like his ghost? Joe suddenly became more alert. Yeah, sort of, but not in a haunting way, more of a calming way. And you think that if you leave this place you'll never feel him again? Yeah. Is this where he died? No. Why? Because they say that a ghost is bound to where they die. If he died somewhere else, then maybe it's just a memory that you feel. Sandra stared back at him with hate in her eyes. She couldn't believe he just said that. You know something? I thought you were nice, but actually, you're just a prick. Sandra stood up and walked to the end of the dock. She looked out over the lake and wished everything would just stop. Wished her father was still alive and that there was no talk about selling the house. Sandra's body suddenly jerked forward. She had been pushed from behind. The lake swallowed her as she dropped through the smooth silver layer and into the deep brown that lay beneath. The water was freezing, cold enough to tighten all the muscles in her body and paralyze her, fear adding to that as well. When her head popped to the surface, she gasped for air, but before she could open her eyes, she felt a hand latch onto her head and she was pushed back beneath the water. She could not get free. Joe smiled as he held her head under. Her struggles were getting weaker. It wouldn't be long now. When Sandra stopped moving, Joe knew that she was dead. He looked at his watch and continued to hold her underwater. He watched the second hand until it completed 3 full circles and then he let it go. Her body bobbed to the surface and stayed there motionless. He reached down and pulled her onto the dock and knelt down beside her. Placing his hands on her chest between her breasts, he forced down heavily over and over. Then he pinched her nose, opened her mouth and breathed in a few times, before going back to pumping on her chest. Joe knew exactly what he was doing. There was no way she could come back to life after being underwater for so long. At the same time, he needed a story. He'd run back to the house and tell them that he found her lying in the lake and tried too late to save her. When the coroner examined her, there'd be evidence that Joe had tried to resuscitate her. He wouldn't be a suspect. Joe stood up and smiled down at Sandra. A job perfectly done. You won't have to worry about leaving your father anymore. Now you can stay together forever. He walked away laughing. Living here was going to be more fun than he had expected. By the time he had reached the end of the dock, Joe was distraught, horrified, and even a little sad. As the house came into view, he began to run, screaming for help. It was all too easy. That's it, guys. Thanks for listening. And remember, leave a comment this week. Let me know what you thought of this week's podcast. I would love to hear from all of you. And even if you have any suggestions for future episodes, then leave that in the comments also. I'll see what I can do. I have loads of different little stories, loads of different themes, and different monsters. So, yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you want in future podcasts. As for Autumn Blues and Opportunities, it is just one of many little gems that is inside Strings. Strings is available to buy on Amazon, as well as my novella, Love's Curse, Zombie Apocalypse in Ireland. Of course you want to read that. If you like either of those, they're right there for you to buy. They're both excellent. Or if you'd like to hear more on the podcast, then I'll be back next Tuesday. Until then, EO out.